Hey guys, it's Amanda over at AmandaReads, and today I'm coming to you with my January and February wrap-up. Today we're keeping it super relaxed. If you can see, I'm in my onesie and my hair is quite a mess. We have a snow day today. It's not actually snowing today, but it did snow a lot yesterday, so much so that because of the removal process, we couldn't have school today. So I'm taking full advantage and bringing you this video. It's been a little while since I've updated you guys. January and February were just some really hectic months. I think I've mentioned before, but in the month of February, I actually got married and I went away for my honeymoon. So I was reading a lot, but I just didn't have a lot of time to film. So I decided the best way to go about it would be to just group January and February together and talk about all the books that I read in those 2 months. Now, at the beginning of the year, I set my reading goal to 12 books because I figured I would definitely read more than that, but to not put any pressure on myself, I would set it to 1 book per month. And I'm happy to say that in the month of February, I actually achieved my goal. Between the months of January and February, I was able to read 13 books, which included 1 audiobook and 12 physical books. In January, I read a total of 870 pages, and in February, I managed to read 2,438 pages. So that brings my grand total of pages read between January and February to 3,308 pages. Now we're going to get into the books I read in January, and in January I completed 4 books. The first book I read in the month of January was When Lightning Strikes by Meg Cabot, and this is part of the 1-800-Where Are You series, and I just really wanted to pick up an old favorite for my first book of 2018. This series is about a girl named Jessica who is struck by lightning, and after she's struck by lightning she gets this power, which is that when she sleeps she dreams of the location of missing children. So when she wakes up, she can tell the FBI where these missing people are. I ended up giving When Lightning Strikes 4 out of 5 stars. Although I still really love the characters and I just feel so nostalgic when I read these books, I did notice that there were some slang terms and just language used that wouldn't really be appropriate in this day and age. It's just not things we say anymore. And so because of that, I took off the 1 star. I am still continuing on my reading of the Junie B. Jones series. So in January I picked up number 7, which is Junie B. Jones Loves Handsome Warren. This series is by Barbara Park, and I grew up reading this series when I was really little, like in kindergarten and 1st grade. I loved to read the Junie B. Jones books. And as I grew up, Barbara Park finished the series, and there's like 20-something books in it now, and I never got to read the later books in the series, so I'm kind of reading it for nostalgic purposes and just because I'm always looking for books to introduce to my young readers. So it's just been really fun. I ended up giving Junie B. Jones Loves Handsome Warren a 4 out of 5 stars, and I really enjoyed it. We follow Junie B. as a new boy named Warren enters her class, and she thinks he's the most handsome boy in the school, and she wants him to be her boyfriend, but her 2 best friends also want him to be their boyfriend. And he thinks that Junie B. is a crazy person, so she just has to deal with rejection, basically. Next, I picked up the 8th book in the Junie B. Jones series, which is Junie B. Jones Has a Monster Under Her Bed. I gave this installment 3.5 out of 5 stars. I liked it. I thought it was really cute. It just didn't really have a lesson or anything to learn from this story. It was kind of just a cute, fun story. So it just wasn't up to some of the other books in the series that I really liked. And the final book I completed in the month of January was an audiobook, and that was The Hate You Give by Angie Thomas. Now, this was a debut book last year from this author, and it got a lot of hype on BookTube when it first came out. I ended up giving The Hate You Give 4.5 out of 5 stars. So those were the 4 books I read in the month of January, and now we're going to be moving on to the 9 things I read in the month of February. Like I said, the month of February was absolutely insane. The first book I finished was a book that I really mostly read in January. I just ended up finishing it up on February 1st, and that was What Light by J. Asher. Now, this is a holiday story. It's about a girl who every year in the winter season goes and runs a Christmas tree farm with her family. So it just really put me in the holiday spirit. I felt like reading this in January kept the spirit alive for me, so I actually unexpectedly liked this a whole lot more than I thought it was going to. I ended up giving this a 5 out of 5 stars. I just thought it was really cute. It was just exactly what I needed and wanted at that time without even knowing it, so it just was the perfect time for me to read it. And sometimes when you just get that perfect book and it's that perfect time, you just have to give it 5 out of 5 stars. After What Light, I ended up picking up the 9th book in the Junie B. Jones series, which is Junie B. Jones Is Not a Crook. In this story, Junie B learns what a lost and found is, and also learns that finders, keepers, losers, weepers is not always the best thing to go by. Overall, it was really cute. I just didn't like it as much as some of the other books in this series. Next, I picked up number 10 in the Junie B. Jones series, which is Junie B. Jones is a Party Animal. In this book, we follow Junie B. as she gets to have a sleepover at her rich friend Lucille's house. It's actually her grandmother's house, and everything in it is super expensive, and you just see all the chaos that happens once Junie B. gets to that house. After I finished Junie B. Jones, I picked up Meet Cute by Jennifer L. Armentrout. Now, Jennifer L. Armentrout did not write this whole story. She actually curated this. It is an anthology. I recently hauled this in the month of January, if you saw my last book haul. It is a book about a bunch of first meetings. So you know that these people will probably fall in love and have a relationship, but you don't actually get to find out. You just get to see the circumstances that bring these two people together. This is actually probably my favorite anthology I've ever read. I think I like it a little bit better than Stephanie Perkins, only because in this anthology, I loved almost every single story, and the ones I didn't love, I still would have given like 3 stars. And I ended up giving it 5 out of 5 stars. Next, I picked up We Are Okay by Nina LaCour, which I gave 4 out of 5 stars. In this story, we follow a girl named Marin who has recently moved to New York from California. And it was a very sudden change, but we don't know why she made that life change. And then as we read the story, we find out, of course, the circumstances that brought her to New York and all these things that have been going on. And although it's a really, really short story and it was a super fast and engaging read, there's a lot going on in here, and I really enjoyed it. I've only read short stories from Nina LaCour in Stephanie Perkins anthologies, but I'm really glad I picked this up and I really enjoyed it, and I think I'll be picking up more from her in the future. If you saw my recent unhaul, you know that I am really trying to tackle my TBR. And to do that, I decided that it would be most beneficial for me to start picking off the series on my TBR. Because if I read the first book in a series and I don't like it, I can unhaul the rest and really cut down on everything I have to read still. So I decided to read a trilogy that I was really skeptical of because I've heard so many negative reviews. And even the people that gave this like a really good review at the beginning have gone back and changed their review to be lower once they finish the trilogy. But it was one trilogy that I really haven't been spoiled for yet. I didn't know like anything about it except the premise. I didn't know anything that was going to happen in the last book, which is pretty rare when a trilogy's been out for a while. And I also didn't watch the movie that came out. So I knew nothing about this, and I figured, why not? I probably won't like it. I'll just read the first one, unhaul the other ones. It won't be a big deal. But I ended up really liking this series. So that series is the Fifth Wave series by Rick Yancey, and this is the first book, The Fifth Wave. If you don't know, we follow Cassie, our main character, who's a teenager, and there's an alien invasion on Earth. And the aliens are basically trying to eliminate the human race so that they can take over the Earth for themselves. And we follow Cassie as she tries to keep her family safe as well as just survive in general. I ended up giving this 4.5 out of 5 stars, and it honestly would have been a full 5 stars, except towards the end of this book, Cassie kisses someone, not gonna spoil, that I thought was completely unnecessary and ridiculous, because 17 pages before she kisses that person, something else happens. And I just don't think of Cassie as the type of person who does something and then 17 pages later kisses someone. I just didn't believe it. It didn't really do anything to help the story. Thought it was completely unnecessary. Didn't like it. Took off a 0.5 star for it. So if that hadn't happened, it would have been a 5 out of 5. But unfortunately, it did happen, so it's a 4.5 out of 5. Then I picked up The Infinite Sea by Rick Yancey, and this was the first book I read on my honeymoon. It got a little deformed and like all wrinkled, and the pages are a little bit crinkly because I did read this laying on the beach and the water did splash the crap out of it. I ended up giving this book 3.5 out of 5 stars. I just kind of felt like this was a filler book. It was much shorter than the first book. A lot did happen looking back on it, but it just felt slow. And so I think that's why I didn't think a lot happened after I finished it. I was like, what was that? Where's the next book? I want something to actually happen. But stuff does happen in this book. It's not a bad book, just wasn't my favorite. Then finally I picked up The Last Star by Rick Yancey, which is the third and final book in the Fifth Wave trilogy. I did give this a 5 out of 5 stars. I thought this ending was badass. I had no complaints, except that one character I didn't think needed to be brought back at the end. But I thought that Cassie in this book was badass. I don't know. Maybe I was just on like an emotional high because I was reading these on my honeymoon and I was just in a really good mood and like nothing could bring me down. So maybe these books aren't as good as I thought they were, but I loved them at the time that I read them. The final book I read in February was Face the Fire by Nora Roberts, and this is the final book in the Three Sisters trilogy. I read the first two books as a buddy read with Fiona over at Reads and Eats, and I brought this with me on my honeymoon thinking like I'll never get through two books, so I'll just bring a third just in case. But I ended up flying through the two books in the Fifth Wave trilogy, so I did need this one, and I ended up reading it without Fiona. However, she just did a reread, so soon we are going to be doing a live show for this book. Probably on my channel, so keep an eye out for that. I really did like this book. I gave it a 4 out of 5 stars. I'm not going to talk too much about it here because I will be talking about it in my video with Fiona, and we'll have a spoiler and non-spoiler section like we always do. But basically, this follows Mia, one of the main characters. Mia's just not one of my favorite characters, so I just didn't like this as much as some of the other books in the trilogy. And I did also feel like the reader was left out a lot. Mia's kind of like a secretive, internal like person. Like she keeps things in and she doesn't really let anyone know what's going on. But I felt like we also didn't get to know what was going on. So this big thing happens at the end and it's like this big like deal and all this stuff is going on. And I was kind of reading it but confused because the characters around Mia had no idea what she was doing, but I also didn't know what she was doing. I didn't really get into like, what was she thinking? What was her plan? And I just felt left out of the story almost. So I don't know if I missed something, but I just felt like a lot was kept from the reader. Overall, I really enjoyed it. I'm really glad I finished this trilogy. Another series down, whoop whoop. But yeah, I don't know. I'm just a little disappointed with the ending. So those are all of the books that I've read in the months of January and February. I would love to know what your favorite book that you read in the month of January and February, or between the two, was. So please comment down below. Also, if you've read any of these books, I'd love to hear your thoughts on them. So feel free to leave that in the comment down below as well. If you haven't already and you would like to, you can always subscribe to my channel. I try to make videos regularly, at least 2 a month. I may not be doing so great on that, but I'm trying. And if you like this video, be sure to give it a thumbs up. So I will see you soon with a new video. Thank you so much for watching. Bye guys!